team players, welcome back. Local Football Flavor, one of the absolute best drafting places on the internet. Putting our money where the mouth is once again. Last week you saw us do all kinds of playoff best balls, both on DraftKings and on underdogs. Statistically speaking, 18% of your lineup should move on. We had over 50%. Talking about making the right picks. But this week doesn't get any easier. We're going to do a little bit of reviewing what went down last week, doing a little bit of the second chance drafts as Underdog is putting out here. And Bob, one of the challenges that you have to deal with any playoff best ball format is there's going to be some players that get you out of week one that don't live on in real life. And Lad McConkey basically being the fantasy darling of that. I mean, him breaking that big ass run and then just going and going and going was like, we're moving on. We're just not bringing him with us.
It was terrible to watch, like, just them falter like that and watching. I mean, and there's something to say too. We were talking about advancement rates last week, and we were sharing about the idea of taking a one and done player. And in our personal estimations, we thought that one and done player would have been Nico and not Lad. Well, it turns out that, the Nico Lad stack did only get us one, and it wasn't the one that we wanted to keep, but it was still a really good one to move forward. And I think that one of the things that will be interesting to note as we move forward, especially as we move into round two, Joe and I, you were talking about this with me over the phone, and I just saw that DraftKings re-upped a lot of the they put us in new pods on DraftKings, and I'm really excited and curious to see which players advance, because I will tell you this is a couple of interesting stacks that I had with Detroit or Kansas City didn't move forward because I took Herbert and players like that I took the Herbert McConkey stack with the Derrick Henry in there as well. But it didn't have enough firepower in the quarterback position or in the back end of that grouping of players to move me forward. So, that is a player that is from my pod that I was in that is not going to have basically any of those bye week players. And if those players end up making it all the way, those rosters are going to suffer for it. And that's why I think it's so interesting, this second chance playoff best ball, because I've been able to build a pretty good combination of players, and it's a bit more unique than the original best ball playoff format because you've really got to think about the whole lineup, the whole integrity of your Super Bowl lineup now, because you're not there to just survive the bye and get there, but getting out of the next round is important because there's money in every round. Not good money in every round, but there is money in every round.
Yeah.
Giving yourself the best chance to win is really relevant in every single round.
And Young, this is a good question to fire up here because there's this perception that Houston only advanced because basically the Chargers imploded, which, again, historical things, stuff does live in the building, and it's just a fact of life. Ownership matters. But you're not going to see Houston be annihilated. All year long, the Chiefs have been a play-it-tight, defensive-based team. Houston is a play-it-tight, defensive-based team. When that happens, you don't get blowouts, which is a broader problem that the Chiefs might have. Now, that being said, Andy Reid doesn't lose after a bye week. I'm still on the Chiefs winning this game regardless of who they would have played. But I do look at it as a broader standpoint of overall, the Chiefs give you a spot where, for fantasy purpose at least, who do you really want to invest in against that defense? I'm not sure I even really want to have Mahomes knowing now they're playing Houston. If they were going to be playing the Chargers with the Steelers, I would have loved it. But knowing it's Houston, I'm not in love with Mahomes. And when we talk about the quarterback position overall here, Bob, really the guy who got us through a lot of the hardship of getting us into week two is Jalen Daniels. And it's pretty much assumed that he's a one and done now. And
you have to.
I don't sure I agree with that. First of all, I liked how that Washington team produced, but I'm still holding out for the Rams Washington NFC title. I know that it's unlikely, but I love the firepower of the Rams from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, I
Mm-hmm.
love Detroit's, but Washington you can get cheap. The Rams you can get cheap, and that was one of the big things that gave the first round best balls we did a lot of legs.
Mm-hmm.
Was that we took teams that not everyone was on the bus with, but they won. Mostly the Rams and Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at this, it's not an easy matchup, Philly and Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Nor is it an easy matchup for Washington and Detroit. But I think that the way it's set up is it's pretty safe to say that Washington, Detroit, and Buffalo, Baltimore are by far your two highest scoring games this week.
So,
And they're the two I want to be invested in.
yeah, I mean, looking at the Chiefs for a moment, Tino,
That might be the lowest scoring game this week.
I'm really curious because this matchup has been played just a couple weeks earlier with Tank Dell being healthy.
Mhm.
And, the scoreboard doesn't really paint a picture really about how the game flow actually kind of went. And when you've watched, when you've watched the Chiefs play, it's almost as if this season there's often a slow burn throughout the Chiefs games
Mhm.
where, they are a they are a very good team that can be dominant at points in time. Um, but then there are times where you wonder, where the offensive firepower is coming from. Because let's be honest, this running game hasn't been it for the last several weeks. I mean,
Mhm.
you look at the fantasy stat sheets, and I built on DraftKings today in the advanced round two, tournament. I
Do you want
built
to
a
dive into
team.
one of those, Bob?
I built a team. Sure, I built a team that was mostly Chiefs, and I'm not super satisfied by it. I did Chiefs and Lions, but I'm not super satisfied by it. But the price is right, and if the Chiefs continue to win and make it to the Super Bowl, I do think that a really good number of Chiefs players, because you will just overwhelm the opposition with this amount of Chiefs players. And if you end up facing other teams with other Chiefs players, then it's going to come down to the diversity that you have here. Um, yeah, I I think that something like this, Tino, is really interesting to think about. Hunt, Mahomes playing together in the first ever playoff game. Mahomes, legendary quarterback, skilled quarterback. It should be enough offensive wise to get past Houston, because Houston also is one of those teams that's kind of mucking about as well, especially in the trenches. Their defensive line, similar to the Chiefs, is a very good defensive line. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Houston's offensive line, not as good. And the Houston and the Chiefs offensive line is good enough, right? And so you look at it and you say, hey, is there a realistic chance that they rest in the third quarter? No. I think
No.
they play this game out all the way, regardless of how the health of Mahomes is. But I also think that this game is going to be a little bit closer than the last meeting was, strictly because the Houston team that we saw this week in the
Fucking
playoffs,
right.
the Houston team that we saw this week in the playoffs was a different, more ferocious defense than we had seen in the last several weeks. They have been ferocious for a little bit of while now, but it's different. They knew they had to come out to play. They knew they had to stack it. They knew they had to get in on. They knew they had to get in on Justin Herbert, and they did. And I'm a little bit concerned that they're going to get in the face of Mahomes a little bit more. And what this is going to come down to is, can Pacheco and Kareem Hunt make a difference? Because they haven't been difference makers so far in the last 3-4 weeks of the season. So I'm definitely at this point. I'm curious, Joe. There you go. I was curious.
I had to get a running back.
Yeah, but I don't really, I want to get back in this. I do believe.
Obviously, I wanted Henry. I thought I was getting Henry there.
Right, I see that.
I
I'm
thought he was going
struggling.
to. I thought he was going to go Josh Allen for sure on one of those two picks
I'm
on the turn.
struggling with the Lamar Cook though.
Oh, the Lamar Cook is basically we're going to do a Ram stack on the back end, and we'll figure it out.
Okay, well,
There's
I'm
only
excited to see what you're going to come in.
in my opinion, there's not a ton of running backs that you can truly invest in the future.
And
I think Henry is the best one.
I'm gonna spit it straight to you here, Joe.
Spit it.
If you're sitting at number 3 ever again, you take the running back first.
Okay.
Okay. Because as you'll see in these 14,
I'm taking Kyron here.
Okay. But as you can see in these 4-teamers, the 4-teamers work a little bit differently.
They do. It's a new blend I got to get used to.
Yeah, this is your first one. So it's being mindful of that. But Tino, as it goes to Hopkins facing his old team, I do think Hopkins is going to have plenty of opportunities to ball out. But I am a bit concerned about the I think this game is going to be slightly lower scoring. And that's why, for playoff best ball purposes, I'm still a little bit concerned about anybody rolling out Houston or Kansas City. There's a couple of players that I think will do fairly well, but it's for the same reason that there were a couple teams last week. If you were rolling out Jalen Hurts wasn't really logistically the best bet in their matchup against Green Bay. So you can look at it and say that a lot of teams that are advancing right now, if you have Hurts, it's a better situation, but you probably advanced irregardless because you had somebody else that wasn't Jalen Hurts. So there is something to say that this might be the week where that game in for the Chiefs might be a 17-10, might be 17-14, might be 21-17. I think it's going to be a tougher matchup than most people think, just because of the resurgence of the Houston defense that we saw this past week. I'm not giving really any credit to Houston's offense because they really didn't do much of anything. They were the ones that scored those couple of touchdowns, but they did it because they had short fields off the turnovers. And I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be that lackadaisical in holding on to the ball. And the fact that a couple of those interceptions came from drop passes for Houston definitely buoyed Houston's spirits. And you're absolutely right, Tino. I mean, and the thing is that in this game as well, you have a couple targets that Houston is going to game plan for. You absolutely know Houston is going to build a game plan around stopping Travis Kelce, and they're going to build a game plan about stopping DeAndre Hopkins. You saw that they couldn't stop Lad McConkey. That plays into the slot problems that Houston has against stopping. So I do feel that the Chiefs are going to win that game, but I also feel that it's going to be a lot closer. How do you feel this game is going to turn out, Tina? What do you think the final score is going to be on this one? Because taking them for fantasy playoff purposes, I might not be so happy with the Chiefs in this week. But if I advance out of this week, I'm going to be really happy because the matchups are going to get. Buffalo's defense looked good yesterday as well, but they don't play as ferociously as Houston's does. But they did look incredible. I mean, props to that defense for playing a whole game and not just giving up at any one point in time. And the Chiefs defense is great too. That's why I say owning Houston players is a pretty tough sled this week because the Chiefs have a good defense. But I will say what we saw this last week is that even when a team gets behind, let's say Houston gets behind, Joe, by 7 or 14, that's going to benefit Stroud from a fantasy standpoint and advance people who have Stroud, even if their first quarterback goes off the road. So I don't even mind it at all building a Chiefs Houston somewhere else lineup to get an extra quarterback in there. Because
so Bob, what we built here is a Baltimore and then either a Washington or Rams Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that's a really, really smart way of going about it. Just as a note, though, and this is something that I want to think about.
We're going to have to make a debate, though, on the last pick. Would you rather have Kupp or Stafford?
I don't want to. I mean, if you think Baltimore is going to make it from the other side, Stafford's not outscoring Lamar.
Fair enough. If Kupp it is, then.
So where I'm coming from this, Joe, to think about what we're doing right now. So anybody joining us right now, we're doing the 4-man re-rack of the best ball playoff tournaments that are here this week on Underdog. They're
And
also
again,
on
50%
DraftKings.
move on rate from the first round.
The first round we hit on a lot of
Should be
lineups on
18%.
both DraftKings and Underdog. So
So
what we're
let's do a
looking
little
at here,
autopsy of this, Bob. So
yeah,
roster overall, I mean, obviously the 4-man league, it should be stacked. But when I look at the quarterbacks this week, again, Jalen Daniels, I think, is probably the highest scoring quarterback. Unlike last week, I think Lamar's going to ball out. Last week, we identified very clearly against the Steelers, Lamar is a trap because the Steelers shut down Lamar's legs, which they did.
I mean, he
Lamar
still
did not
score
put
well.
up great fantasy numbers. Daniels outscored him.
He put up what we thought we were going to get out of him, which was around 20 points.
Yeah, which was also lower than what consensus thought.
And which was also around the same amount as Russell Wilson, who did not move on, but did help people move on to advance over the Lamar teams because they took better talent earlier. So that's something
exactly.
to be considered.
Lamar's one of the players that did not move a lot out of the first round.
Well, Jalen Hurts didn't move a lot out of
this format against Buffalo, I think he's going to ball out. I also think Jalen Daniels is going to ball out. So I think I have 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the week going into it. Now, I would much have rather had King Henry than Cook. However, I think Saquon's basically giving exactly what he gave you last week. Gibbs is a wild card. Gibbs could go off, but so could Cook in a shootout where they don't have as much talent. So I like Cook here. I love Kyren. If it ends up being a run-the-ball slog, I do think the Rams have a chance of winning it. And Kyren's going to put something.
Well, Kyren's always a volume-based play anyway. So
yeah,
you're not looking for Kyren. I mean, if Kyren plays and gets a touchdown, it's good money, for you. But
yeah,
again,
and overall, you look at the receiving room. We got 2 Ravens, 3 Rams, and Washington. Which means if the Super Bowl is Baltimore against either Washington or the Rams, we got a full lineup.
So, Landon, I got offered Brock Bowers and a 2025 second-round pick in the rookie draft in a 10-man, and I give up Trey McBride and my 104 pick in this year's rookie draft. 1 tight end, dynasty, 2 flex.
So I would not do that. I would not do that at this point, Landon. I need to know who the quarterback of Oakland's going to be. Tom Brady has made it very, very clear that they are changing quarterbacks. I need to know who it's going to be. Because Bowers with the right quarterback is unbeatable. However, Bowers with the wrong quarterback is useless. And this entire Raiders team is in upheaval. Sure, you can make the argument Bowers is the only one they can build around, but I need to see who their quarterback's going to be. That's the fundamental answer before I trade out of 1-4. Because right now, McBride and Bowers aren't that far apart. They really aren't.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't think it's worth giving up 1-4 for.
Yeah, and what my opinion on this is not about the player that's already playing in the NFL. It's about the players coming in. So if I have a 104 this year, that locks me into some pretty good talent at the top of the board. And if I push myself back to 202, I don't think that I'm getting back that much value there.
You're getting 202, you're getting someone who's a borderline cut in week 13.
So you're getting, so for example, so if you're getting the 202, you're moving back, what is that? 8 picks? Yeah, something like that, 8 picks. So you're moving back 8 picks.
No, it's 10 picks in a 12-man league. Or it's 10-man league. Yeah, you're right.
You're looking at the potential difference between an Ashton Genty, Shadur Sanders type of player to,
running back or a receiver that maybe they hit.
A receiver or running back that was drafted in the 3rd round.
So this year's draft, it's basically going back from JT to hoping that you're connecting on someone like Roman Wilson. I mean, that's basically what would have been happening in those drafts.
And I don't
JTT, Neighbors. I mean, you're talking. I mean, the top 4 picks this year were Harrison, Neighbors, JTT.
Yeah, I'd need a little bit.
Tom, the one in Jacksonville. I keep
Yeah,
mixing
I'd
them
need a
up
little
because I'm
bit
using my
more.
initials wrong.
I would need a little bit more, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
If
you need
I
to get more because that's too
yeah,
lateral of a position trade and not enough of an upgrade.
if I was trading off of Brock Bowers, if I was trading Brock Bowers, I might not want to trade into a tight end. Um, I get the reasoning behind it, and this is just my personal opinion, Landon. You can take it for what it's worth. But if I'm moving off of Brock and giving up that pick, I want to move into a player that's going to incrementally help me now. So if I'm moving
Mm-hmm.
Brock Bowers um, plus a second round pick, I want to be moving into an elite running back or an elite wide receiver that I don't need to
All right, Bob,
question.
1-1.
That I don't need to question. So here you're either going Gibbs, Barkley, or Henry, in my
I'm going Henry.
opinion. You
All
can
right,
build.
let's do Gibbs. Let's see if we can get a Washington or Detroit build.
You
But
can.
if
You
you do a
can. I'm
Detroit
telling
build,
you
I
right now,
think
you
you
can.
have to do Kansas City. I don't want to do
You
Kansas City.
can't. That's the build you have to do. Also, I want to lay it out there. I just want to share this one.
I'm just
If
so much more confident in the Baltimore Rams
if
Washington
you
builds.
build if you build a Josh Allen, right? Say you build a Josh Allen, that leaves all the NFC open for you, and it leaves a lot of Detroit open for you too. So you could build something like
All
Josh
right, so
Allen.
I'll do Gibbs, and then we'll see which quarterback comes around.
Well,
How
the
about that?
quarterback would, yeah, that's fine. I mean, but you're going to land yourself on either Mahomes or Goff, ideally, in that scenario.
Oh, I'm
Um,
fine with getting Goff.
but I was saying, if you take Josh Allen, you then have the chance in the second round to stack two Detroit players, second and third round. Then in the fourth round, hit back with a Buffalo with Shakir
But this
and
gets back
another
to the
Detroit
fundamental
player.
problem we've been having with Buffalo all year, Bob. There's no one else from Buffalo I want.
Well, I get it, but we're it's not about what you want, it's about stacking the whole team at this point in time. If you're taking Buffalo,
I
you're
don't. What I'm
stacking the
saying
whole
is, I
bunch
don't
back.
think Buffalo can get me out of the first round.
I think Buffalo can do well again. I think Josh Allen will do well against Baltimore. I
Allen
really
will.
do.
What receiver will?
I mean, it is the toughest game on the slate to predict because the two teams are very close
Oh, I don't think it is. I think
in a
Baltimore's
lot
taking
of
them to the
metrics.
shed. I think
I
Baltimore's
don't
going to
think.
absolutely destroy them. Which, quite frankly, if I can build a Baltimore-Detroit lineup, I'm about to do it.
Well, you can't. I mean, yeah, you get one of the running backs, and then you could get Lamar and Andrews. That would be the most elite stack that you can build.
Well, I got elite. I got Andrews in the last one, like mid-rounds.
No, I'm saying Lamar and Gibbs as your first two. That would be the most elite. But the Derrick
Yeah.
Henry guy is going to take Lamar.
Well, he should.
And then this would walk you into an Amon-Ra Patrick Mahomes, which would give you the best players from those teams.
So Amon and
yeah, this would
well,
walk
if
you.
Amon goes, it's going to be Mahomes and Kelsey.
Yeah, that's fine too. I mean,
Quite
in draft
frankly, it
in
might
DraftKings,
be.
yeah, here you go, take them.
I think I take Amon Kelsey anyway.
No,
They just took three quarterbacks. I think
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
getting,
that's fair. Yeah.
I think I'm getting sliding back to me.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, Austin, Chargers let me down hugely. We had talked a couple weeks back. We were talking a couple weeks back about how good Houston's defense was going to be on that Monday night game that they played, if you remember, Austin. And we said that was one of our picks. And they haven't really been that kind of ferocity in their defense for such a long time. And the reasoning behind taking Herbert so much on the back ends of these playoff best ball drafts was the fact that he has not committed a turnover in such a long time. They were taking care of the ball. They had 3 turnovers all year.
Ooh.
3 turnovers all year. And then in this game, they had 4. That's what I was worried was going to happen because these players are assholes in these drafts, dude. The Chargers super
let
us
so
down.
We'll take Goff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool with Kelsey being a one-off, by the way.
No, I mean, you can one-off the player. What I want to do here is take...
Well, Goff is one of the picks.
Take Goff and take Worthy. That gives us 2 offensive skill position players from the teams, the best ones from the teams, plus a quarterback that can do well.
We're going to have debate here because I still feel Hopkins over Worthy, but I'll give it to you.
You can take Hopkins too.
Yeah, no. Well, my next come around is going to be Hopkins and Daniels.
That's fine, because I don't believe in Goff to get you powered through into the next round.
Well, he
But
can, but you never know.
he will be one of the last quarterbacks left. But Austin, I mean, such a disappointment. If you were watching on Nickelodeon, the big news was that he got eaten by like the big slime ball thing, the Coach Harbaugh. So that really affected. I think that really affected the way he coached in this after the first two drives, because the Chargers came out hot. Chargers came out hot, and then they couldn't do anything. Houston's defense just trolled them the entirety of that game. Um, I was watching it. I was watching it with my little boy, and it was just. I was so disgusted. Every time I turned around, it was another Chargers turnover.
Pacheco, Scary Terry?
No, you said
Pacheco,
Daniels.
Monty.
You said Daniels.
All right, so Pacheco, Daniels?
No, take McLaurin and Daniels. Take McLaurin. McLaurin has a better chance to outscore Pacheco, and I don't think Pacheco will place in our winning lineup. If we make it to the Super Bowl with this team, Pacheco's not outscoring Gibbs. And if you want to take a back end Monty over Pacheco, Monty has a better chance of doing that.
All right, so we got 3 picks left, and clearly we have gone Kansas City and Detroit as the studs, but we got a little bit of a Washington hedge here.
And
I like that we have the Washington hedge. I like the fact that Detroit's playing Washington. So basically, we're guaranteed an NFC champion representation. And I also think we're guaranteed it with Kansas City as well.
So what you need to do here, if you want that representation in that game, regardless, I would take a back end running back from Washington hedge, in the last round.
Yeah, I think an Eckler.
Either B-Rob or Eckler.
I like Eckler.
You don't have to do that now, but you.
No, he's gonna be last pick.
Because that puts our positions at an advantage. Where if
oh shit, these things go fast. I fucked that up again.
Take the best player available on the board right now that you think is going to get us out of the first round or out of this round. This stack is actually pretty nice. It gives us the the Washington Detroit game. It gives us 3-3. Then we're playing off of the Chiefs, 2 of the Chiefs there. So I like that. I like that a lot. Who you going?
I'm probably gonna go with Coleman.
That's gross. I don't like that at all.
If someone's gonna score for Buffalo, it has to be their deep down threat.
No, it doesn't. It was Curtis Samuel this week, so it doesn't have to be Coleman at all. I mean that logic is.
Well, Coleman also was best on the board, by the way. So all right, so this is the thing.
I would rather
so fast.
I would rather have Kareem Hunt.
I should have taken Andrews
to do the stack. I mean, whatever. Mick, it's good to see you, man. We're just doing a couple.
That's what happens when I get start typing stuff, Bob.
We were just talking about at the top of the hour. We were talking about our advance rate from round 1 to round 2. While I was on my break at work today, I found that DraftKings and Underdog are doing second round playoff best balls, 4 teams per pod, 1 team getting out of the pod. Really unique, really interesting build types in this scenario. It's worth throwing a couple bucks at. Playing around gives you a chance to win a lot of money, and you can build some really, really good teams within the structure of these lineups. That's why I'm saying Khalil Shakir there, Joe. Round 8 is actually, it's nice to build a Buffalo stack.
Yeah, if you can get Kincaid, you can get all the Buffalo guys late.
I'm saying
I can see it.
And Mick, I will tell you this, man. I will tell you this. The fact of the matter remains for DraftKings. DraftKings makes you build such differently unique lineups, unlike Underdog. Underdog kind of forces you into these top players, whereas on DraftKings you have to build out a tight end and all that stuff. The one team I mentioned earlier, my Hurts Saquon team, missed by like 0.4. And that's the thing, Mick. That was the rough part about it, is that Philly had, like, taking the skill positions for Philly was so rough because A.J. Brown again disappointed us. Devonta Smith again mostly disappointed us. Dallas Goedert didn't disappoint. Him and Barkley were like the only players from Philadelphia that didn't disappoint in this game. But walking into it, it was one of those situations where you're just sitting there like, I missed out my one teammate on DraftKings. I was sitting there and saying to myself, okay, this team's got a good chance to win. It had Lamar and Hurts, and it had Philly and Baltimore stacked. It didn't make it. It didn't make it because there wasn't enough firepower on the Philadelphia side from A.J. Brown. and I lost out. I came in second in that one too on DraftKings, but we made a
So
lot.
Bob,
We made a lot, which is enough.
having
AJ Brown was my
seen
highest drafted wide receiver, so I got like a 20% gauntlet advance rate. Not enough ladder Henry. Yeah, we had a lot of ladder Henry. It was just disappointing. We lost Lad on a couple of our lineups that didn't that had Herbert on them, and I mean we had Lad in a lot of lineups that would have had Herbert and Mahomes or Goff on it, and because Herbert didn't do enough to advance us, we didn't make it out with those lineups.
well, that's not true. Jalen Daniels carried us a lot.
Well, I'm saying
But
if we
so
went
Bob, with
in
this
lineup,
lineup,
I'm
having
saying
seen what I just seen,
I'm staying
I
in lineups
think
that
that I
we
would
built
like
Herbert.
to build, and Lamar will make this a pain in the ass. Well, the quarterbacks will make. I think I would like to do what we just did, which is the
Ladder Henry bowled out this past week. It was really nice.
We just did the combination.
Nick, who's
winner
on that
of
team? I'm
Detroit,
really curious,
Washington,
man.
right?
Say that again.
We just did the. Oh, why did that cut off? What are we doing here?
I don't know.
We just did the Detroit combination of Washington and Detroit, which gave us the winner of that game in the AFC against the Chiefs. Seeing that you're able to get all the Bills late kind of makes me think that we could do a Baltimore Buffalo, but then you wouldn't have Allen.
Well, you'd have to either take Allen or Lamar.
And being here at the second turn, we'll know which running back we're going to get. Like, if we don't get Henry.
So, Mick, this is a lineup that I really like that I made on DraftKings. The lineup goes like this. I just lost. The only player I lost from this lineup is Addison. So, it's Josh Allen, James Cook. We've got Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, Goddard, Coleman, Ty Johnson, Kupp, Mixon, Schultz, and Stroud. I've got basically two complete teams that I can build into. I think that team's going to make it out. I think that team's going to make it out of that round. That was a hedge on all my Chargers bets, by the way.
You got to have the hedge bet sometimes.
Taking a bunch of Houston. So both quarterbacks just went, Joe.
Yeah, I see that.
So I think it would be prudent right here to build Barkley and Henry, because that gives us a chance to build both Baltimore and Philadelphia.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. I like that. I like that a lot.
Lamar, Mixon, Justice
Talk about
Hill,
a strong
AJ,
flex out of the bat.
Devonta, Evans, Goddard, likely. Yeah, I mean, it was a shame for anybody getting those Tampa guys. Like we took Baker and a couple of them. It was rough. Yeah, when I've been doing these, Mick, on DraftKings, almost every time that I've been at the 101, I've been taking Gibbs, but I've also been throwing a wrench in the system too by occasionally taking Josh Allen 101. Because if you take Josh Allen 101 or you take Lamar 101, you have the potential to get a Detroit comeback on the other side of an Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta on DraftKings because you need a tight end. Or,
hey, dude, is Andrews hurt? Why is he dropping down these boards?
He's not hurt, from what I heard.
So why is he dropping?
Why do you like Gibbs up there, Mick? Because I really like Gibbs because Washington's defense isn't very good against the run. I think it will be a good spot for advancement for Detroit. No, he's not hurt. I also think that it's interesting to build off. See, he took AJ Brown. I'm not really upset about that. AJ Brown has performed poorly, so I'm not super upset about that. I think our third or fourth pick here has to be Hurts, and then I'd take Andrews or Bateman or Zay.
Devontae.
If Devonta Smith is there, sure, but he won't be because that guy's building Eagles and
he's building the
Lamar.
same lineup as us. He's doing Baltimore,
but reverse. We're going to be taking the Ravens wide receivers, so now we know who we're battling out. Chance to make.
How about we?
Yeah, I
also
agree.
A possibility.
I agree that's kind of my opinion.
Bob, timeout. Possibility here. Instead of playing into what everyone else is doing,
we have to play into Hurts. Lean into Hurts here.
No. How about we just do those as one-offs? As Saquon as the one-off. Hurts didn't really put up a lot. I can get Kelsey and Mahomes, and we can do the one-off running backs, and then backdoor ourselves into Kansas City and something else.
Yeah, do that because that third guy is hoping for Mahomes or Goff. Yeah, do that. All right. I like that.
So we're not
And
playing
build
into
out-
everyone else. We just took the top 2 running backs, and there are one-offs.
Then build Kansas City here. Build
we'll
the rest
build
of
Kansas City.
So we're going to have
I don't
to
think we can build Kansas City and the Rams.
Well, I mean, if our one-off, so here's the thing. If our one-off, and if the championship game is Philly versus KC,
which is what we're going for,
we have the best side of Philly, and we have the best side of KC.
Yeah, the only thing that could change that is if Hurts is out of concussion protocol and starts doing something legit.
I mean,
like,
if Hurts
would you
goes
want
off,
us to add Goddard to this roster?
Well, this guy's going to add Hurts and Goddard, I think.
Well,
right
I'm asking, ideal world, would you want them?
Would I want Goddard? Sure. Goddard gives us. I'd want Goddard and Worthy, or Goddard, Hopkins, Worthy, or Worthy and Hopkins here. I'd be willing to buy up on Hopkins at this moment in time, knowing that they know we have Patrick Mahomes. If we take Hopkins and Worthy and then build out the back end, I'm okay with that.
And do we take Pacheco as to cover the Super Bowl in case Philly ain't there?
No, I'd rather have Hurts over Pacheco, because Hurts could outperform Mahomes.
If Hurts is somehow still on the board, we're gonna take Hurts.
Yeah, I hate that, but I agree.
So we're gonna get at least 2 of the 3 of the 2 Kansas City receivers and Hurts. It's a pretty good spot to be. All right, so we have the 2 Kansas City receivers.
Yeah, Worthy, and Hop. Yeah, here you ultimately in this one particularly, Mick, from what my like in the first best balls, it is a good idea to get out of the first round, but ultimately you do want to build a Super Bowl lineup. And this, you definitely want to build out the Super Bowl lineup that you think has the best chance of scoring. But I'm not going to put it out of the realm of possibility that some of these lineups created right now, like this Josh Allen lineup, might not make it out of the first round, right? Lineup.
3 of them won't make it out of the first round.
No, but I'm saying there will be lots of different ways of constructed lineups, and there's a lot of people out there in terms of advancement where they're building. If they're leaning into Kansas City, they're taking every single asset of Kansas City. Noah Gray, Justin Watson, Juju.
Yeah, see, I think that's too crazy.
Because those people, once you get to the Super Bowl,
I don't think Mahomes is the number 1 scoring quarterback in week 1.
Yeah, if you have 7 or 8 players from in your player pool from the Chiefs to choose from in the Super Bowl, that ultimately could win you the Super Bowl. But you got to get there. So you got to build just some little bit of a different asset in there. Like, we're going to build Jane Daniels here.
Yeah, we're going to do Scary Terry and Jane Daniels right now.
Because that gives us a good advance rate, because it's not guaranteed that Xavier Worthy is going to be the best producing wide receiver. And it's not guaranteed that Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the top 4 best producing quarterbacks this week.
But it is guaranteed that Gibbs, Saquon, and Henry are your top 3 running backs. So by treating Henry and Saquon as a one-off, first off, I think we really mess with the rest of our drafters' heads, which I'm good with. So in terms of the hedge,
so I would like to build another Kansas City player. I know we don't have the chance to get Hollywood Brown.
The only Kansas City player you can add and have him in the roster would have to be the running back, because we have Kelsey, Worthy, and Hopkins.
Both running backs are out, but I'm not.
Yeah, so there's no other Kansas City player we can add.
Noah Gray, Juju, Justin Watson.
No, because they'd have to start over Hopkins.
But they could in the Super Bowl. They could outscore him in the Super Bowl potentially.
See, I'm more comfortable stealing Zay here.
Okay, that's fine. Zay, Curtis Samuel, something like that. P. Ryan. I mean, again, he will help you maybe in the Super Bowl, but not advance out. So that's the kind of mindset that I'm in, Joe, is that once I get to a point where I'm building that stack, I want to try to build out as many players from that pool so my pool expands. See Justin Watson there?
Well, see, I want to get out of the first round. So I'm thinking Eckler and Flowers.
I don't think
gives me the Washington other side.
Eckler's not going to help
running back.
Eckler's not going to help you unless Washington advances.
Well, they'd have to be in the Super Bowl. I get that.
Yeah.
But this is an all-red Super Bowl lineup we just built here.
Yeah, I mean,
Listen, do not count that Washington team out against Detroit.
yeah, if it's Washington, Kansas City in the Super Bowl, you absolutely have one of the better, more elite lineups because the running backs are a wash. If it's a Kansas City Washington Super Bowl, the running backs are a wash. You got both of the quarterbacks if it's a Kansas City Washington Super Bowl, and you have the best wide receivers if it's a Kansas City Washington Super Bowl. So if it's
Yeah.
Kansas City Washington Super Bowl, I think you have a good chance of winning. If it's Kansas City, if it's Kansas City Philadelphia, I still think that you have the best asset from Philadelphia. So I don't
Oh,
think
I
you're
do.
losing
So
much
so
there.
the best part of this is that again, I do not think that Mahomes is going to be anywhere near the number one quarterback fantasy wise this week. I think it's going to come down to Allen, Lamar, and Daniels. So knowing that,
Yeah,
I like the fact that I just like in week one, I keep getting Daniels super cheap, and boom, the fact we got a week out of him
Mick,
got us there.
Mick, I want to say something about this stock because this has got, like I was just saying, it's going through my mind a lot when it comes to this build specifically. And when we were looking up the metrics from last year, there were several teams that had all assets except for quarterback. And from the advanced rates that are happening here, it really seems that a lot of a lot of teams that are advancing are going to advance because of really good quarterback play from a one-off quarterback, say like a Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Herbert, something like that, right? Or a one-off quarterback is going to take them to the next round, but they lose that asset. I think
Mm-hmm.
that there's something to say that taking potentially the best, most high-scoring quarterback later in the vein of Jane Daniels, but supplementing him with the quarterback that you think is going to be in the Super Bowl, a la Patrick Mahomes or Jared Goff, I think is a really smart thing because it
Mm-hmm.
almost it almost guarantees that if you make it, um, Daniels is probably going to be the one to have outscored Patrick Mahomes, or Jared Goff in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
No teams did good but lost the week besides like Ladd. So every good quarterback for Gauntlet is still going to be around.
Well,
Um,
that's not true. People
yes and no, because
Baker put up a lot of value, and so did Evans, and didn't move on. But you're right in terms of like the elite name brand ones. That's true. Bo Nix gave a lot of fantasy points this year and did not advance.
yeah,
Um,
and Mick, to this point, just looking at my pods from DraftKings and looking at who I advanced and who I advanced out of, you know, I'm gonna be going up against teams that probably had a Detroit or that might have a Detroit build or a Kansas City build and built a back end CJ Stroud or built a back end Jaden Daniels. And I'm concerned about
not as
those
much
builds
though, because not too
right
many of
there.
those teams did make it out of round one.
But
Not having three of your first four rounds costs a lot of people
there's
in the
going to be
wild
a
card
chance
round.
because it was such a weird week this week. There's going to be a chance that there aren't going to be a lot of Philadelphia players unless they took a Saquon Barkley without a Jalen Hurts. There's also
Yeah, you're talking about the
probably
original gauntlets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's probably going to be less Lamar players out there unless they did a stack of like, if they did a stack of Lamar, AJ Brown, and Devonta Smith, they're out unless they pulled up with a Mixon on the back end, which they most likely didn't do.
Mm-mm.
So there's going to be, I feel like in our pods this week, there's going to be a lot of Houston. There's going to be a lot of Diami Brown and Jaden Daniels. And there's going to be a lot of Detroit. There's going to be a lot of Buffalo with those back end
There's
Curtis
going to be a lot of
Samuels
people
and
with
Cook.
incomplete lineups because Ladd and Evans and
I'm just
Pickens
really,
got them there.
I'm really curious about it.
Like we had a lot of lineups with Ladd, Evans, and Pickens, and they gave you a lot of points.
Yeah, dude. One of my advanced lineups scored like 142 points because it had Ladd, Nico, and Derrick Henry and stuff like that. But basically, I'm walking out there without a couple players this week, and I'm just hoping, um, hoping I can get lucky into another round until the player pool dies off even more. What I'm
See,
looking
I
for
want
is
to do it.
that
I'm
player
doing
pool to
another. I
die
want to
off.
do another Baltimore one. I'm
It
telling you
just
guys,
looks so ugly.
this is coming from a Steelers fan. Baltimore's going to win the Super Bowl.
Totally.
I mean, Baltimore's going to win the Super Bowl. It's going to suck, but it's going to happen.
I mean, they have an interesting. I mean, they have an interesting pathway to the Super Bowl. I don't think you're wrong.
They have a very
in
high
assuming-
scoring pathway to the Super Bowl because
I don't think
the Bills game and the Detroit games are the two highest scoring games of the week.
So the question is, who do you think they're facing on the other side? Because that dictates. So the reason I say that is like that dictates if it's going to be Philly, if it's going to be Philly Baltimore, then I'm okay doing like Lamar Saquon or Saquon Derrick Henry like we did. If we think it's going to be like Baltimore Washington, then I would take Derrick Henry first, and because Washington doesn't
See,
have
I want Henry regardless. I think he's the playoff MVP. I know the football doesn't give out the Conn Smythe, but I think Henry's going to be the true winner of it.
Yeah. I mean, just to read you another one of my advanced lineups here, one of the ones that advanced, outside of that Josh Allen lineup. Let me find this one. Maybe this is the one.
Dude, I'm also not giving a guarantee the Rams lose either.
Joe, this lineup that I have here is a nice one too. This is Mahomes, Gibbs, Nico, McLaurin, Kelsey, Henry, Daniels. I lost Disley and Dobbins. I have Noah Gray, Hopkins, and Brian Robinson. That's got legs. That's got really good legs.
Well, here's the fact: you advance, you got legs. I mean, that's the big part of this game, right?
This one doesn't have that many legs. I mean, it
Bob,
does.
Bob, I got Lamar and Henry to start this draft off.
Yeah,
time to go all in on the purple.
Cook it.
Cooking it like crazy.
And
we're gonna do Rams and Washington as the backside. That's what this draft is gonna be.
I'm okay with the back end. Because unless you can build out a couple wide receivers from Philly, I don't like it. But you might be.
I don't want Philly's receivers.
I get it. I understand. I'm there. But if they're in the Super Bowl, then I might want them. If it's Baltimore, Philly in the Super Bowl, then I might. That's all I'm saying.
And the best part is, aside from Jalen Daniels, you don't need any other quarterback. I mean, we're gonna put Jalen Daniels on.
I mean, but, you could also do a little bit. You could do a Detroit Baltimore with Sam Laporta, but you're not getting the best player from Detroit there.
So this is Puka and Kyron.
If that's the build you want to make,
I want to build Rams, Washington, Baltimore.
Okay, I'm being
consistent with my first round answers.
I would have taken Andrews.
I think we're getting Andrews late. He keeps falling. Every single draft we've done, he's been in the 7th round.
So number 3 is building out Philly and Buffalo. That has a good chance to advance. Number 2 is building out
Detroit, Philly.
Or
Detroit.
No,
number
Detroit,
2 is
Kansas
Detroit,
City.
Kansas City. Sorry.
And then we have Detroit. Yeah, I like Noah Gray, man.
Yeah, this is gonna be Scary Terry and Daniels.
I think it should be Mark Andrews.
I'm gonna get him in the 7th round, Bob.
Do Mark Andrews and Bateman or something like that. Okay. I mean, if you believe it, you believe it.
I believe in Scary Terry and McLaurin, and Daniels. I also know I
would have made him really
by taking Daniels. I've just dramatically increased the likelihood of getting out of this pod because I have the top 2 quarterbacks.
But there goes Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. That lineup's going to cook. If that lineup makes it to the Super Bowl, that lineup's going to be a great lineup because he got all the assets.
He did. This has been more than any other one. No one really fighting over teams and going very straight into your.
That's how it is more so in the big money ones. When you do those, you're going to build out a lot of lineups there. He's going to build out Khalil Shakir because I don't see Khalil Shakir gone yet. He's going to build out Shakir. I think we lost this one. I like number 3's team a lot this week.
Honestly, I don't think Philly's gonna be a high enough scoring game. I mean, as much as I love the Rams and I keep building them, I don't think it's a high enough scoring game to get out of without having a piece of Baltimore Buffalo.
He does have Baltimore Buffalo. He is Josh Allen.
Oh, he's Buffalo Philly is what he's building.
Mm-hmm. I think this has to be Bateman.
And there you go. Zay and Andrews.
Take Bateman on the back end, number 9.
I was going to take Eckler. Although neither one's going to outscore Henry. I'll take Bateman if he's still there. Sure.
If you think Baltimore's going to make it in the Super Bowl, you have to take as many assets as you can from Baltimore right now. That's what I'm saying. Like if you think that's
the next pick's going to be Cup and it's going to be Cup and the problem is that Washington gets there. We only have 2 Washington guys. That's where Eckler was going to come into play.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Realistically speaking, maybe the asset from Washington is going to outscore anybody from Baltimore.
Bateman went anyway. It doesn't matter.
That's why I'm saying Bateman should have been one of your guys. Zay,
I'd rather have Andrews and Zay over Bateman.
but Zay's hurt right now, so I mean, he could have been drafted the last pick. Is
See,
what
I
I'm
don't think so.
I'm saying.
I don't. I first of all, I'd rather have Zay than Bateman, because Zay will ball out. I'm going to take Kupp and Eckler here.
I think those are wasted picks, but okay.
At some point, Kupp is going to go off. I guarantee it. Mm-hmm. Don't know when it's going to happen.
But I think in this scenario, Joe, you're putting a little bit too much emphasis. You're putting a little bit too much emphasis on the potentialities between these Super Bowls. I think when you pick a team, it's okay to take a back end player, but I think you do have to take as many assets from that team as possible, because if our lineup makes it to, if our lineup, let's say our lineup makes it in there, there are going to be a boatload of teams that have more Baltimore players or more Washington players than us.
But well, okay, if this is Baltimore Rams, we have Lamar, Henry, Kyron, Puka, Andrews, Flowers, and Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
That's winning.
Yeah, they're. But here's the thing, man.
I mean, period. That wins it.
If you build what we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of the positive EV, I honestly, and Tino, I'm sorry, I know it looks like you're a Chiefs fan, but I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be the best fantasy assets for this week.
Oh, they're not. No, neither of those two teams are. Too good of defenses.
So I'm concerned. I think that if you build out a Kansas City stack, you're going to be carried by your Detroit, or you're going to be carried by your NFC counterpart stack.
Which is why we keep pairing Washington with them. Washington's going to be losing and having to do a shootout.
While that's the same reason for that, is that if I'm building out that Kansas City stack because I think Kansas City is going to make it to the Super Bowl, even if they get to the Super Bowl, the problem with Kansas City, and the reason why they're going a little bit later in this kind of format, is because the NFC side of the coin has a better chance to outscore them at almost every asset, right?
Mm-hmm. So, except for Baltimore.
I don't believe, I mean, that's
no one's fighting Kansas City is going to be there.
We
have to be there with our fantasy roster. And Mahomes isn't going to score enough this week to outperform 5 other quarterbacks, fantasy speaking. That's why every single one of these rosters has Jalen Daniels on it.
What I'm saying is, I do think the Chiefs have a good chance to win the Super Bowl. I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to perform well. But from a fantasy perspective, when we look at the scores for Patrick Mahomes over the last 8 weeks of the season, he really turned it on. But to that same degree, if you own Jaden Daniels and Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels is most likely going to carry you to the next round to allow your Patrick Mahomes to survive. But when you look at it and you say, okay, Patrick Mahomes versus Baltimore's got their shit together defensively recently, and Buffalo in this past game seems to have gotten it together as well. That's going to be a tough matchup for Patrick Mahomes, and he might not perform to the fantasy perspective of 20 plus points, whatever that we're looking at here. As the quarterbacks start to dwindle down, then it starts to not matter how much you're going to get out of them. But once we get to the Super Bowl, let's say I survived the first round and I had Patrick Mahomes and I take a back end Jane Daniels to get me over the next round. That's all I'm saying with these back end players like this is I'm building for the Super Bowl unequivocally, and I'm building a couple mini stacks in there as well. But I want to be able to use Patrick Mahomes. And what's happened this week, just looking at our first advanced pod and seeing what happens, is that I had a whole stack on the bench of Kansas City and of Detroit. But Herbert wasn't enough to get me to the next week. And I think that Patrick Mahomes is probably going to stabilize somewhere in that 15 to 18 point market. Maybe he hits 22 points. Maybe he's going to have to do a good chunk of change to hit 22 points fantasy style. If he's capable of doing that, then he's going to make it out of the round regardless and going to take you to the Super Bowl. But at that same point in time, if I don't have enough firepower on the opposite side to get me to the next round, I'm going to suffer. Because let's face it, right? If you bought in this past week to Buffalo this past week, and you bought into Shakir and you bought into Curtis Samuel, some people in these drafts, some people didn't buy Curtis Samuel if they were buying Josh Allen. They bought into Kincaid, they bought into Cook, they bought into Shakir, and they bought into Allen, and that was what they wanted. And then they took an NFC guy on the other side. They might not have been able to use Josh Allen in the next round because maybe the lad owner or whatever built a one-off lineup and knocked them out. There's going to be Josh Allen's that we see in this round for sure, 1,000%. There's going to be Lamar's. There's going to be Mahomes's. There's going to be everybody there. And to Mick's point, which I think is important to note, I do think it's important to build as many assets as you can from a particular team. But there's a kind of a law of diminishing returns.
That's the problem.
Is that I build Justin Watson. Justin Watson, the chances Justin Watson contributes significantly to the Super Bowl, it's not high. It statistically speaking,
yeah, but the bigger problem is it's less likely for you to get there. You know, Bob, we brought up at the beginning of the year, it's less likely now because the wild card round has passed, but there is a ton of teams that will make it with only 3 of their 10 remaining. That is something that happens. So you need to know that going into that.
It happens more than people think, to be honest with you. I mean,
over half of them had 0 out of their 10.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. So it's all about getting to the second round. So I keep going Rams and Washington. Washington is more of a first round play, but oh God, if they get to the second round. And the Rams, I do think, are going to be Philly. I think it's going to happen. And Buffalo, I think, is going to win as well. Or Baltimore's going to win as well. So,
and this is the thing, too.
That's why King Henry keeps being my first pick.
This is the thing, too, Mick and Nino, and Tino, is the fact that a lot of people were bounced out of their pods this week by C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, and Nico Collins because they went Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and that was not enough. Hurts is not enough.
That's the fundamental problem with Philly and why I don't think they're going to win. Oh, this guy's going to hate me, but Lamar's the pick. Wish I would have gotten both of them again, but that is what it is.
So what NFC team are you taking?
Probably Detroit.
So you go Derrick Henry, Amon-Ra?
Yeah, we haven't built Detroit yet.
I think Derrick Henry and Gibbs are comparable in that refrain. This guy's going to build Buffalo, Philly as much as he can. This guy on the back end here is going to take Josh Allen and Gibbs. That's a little scary. So we're going to have to take Goff soon. Probably at pick number 4. Because we need a quarterback if it's going to be Baltimore, Detroit. Even though I don't think Goff will outscore Lamar in the Super Bowl.
Oh, we still need one.
I know. I'm just saying. We need it.
Amar has just become a one-off player.
So you don't want to build Detroit?
No.
Why? We could build Goff. This makes Derrick Henry not a one-off. Take Goff.
See. All right.
Just do it.
I'll put Goff in.
Show you why. You could take him a little bit later, but I don't trust the pod.
I think the next guy's taking Hurts.
Who do you want to take?
Puka.
Then take him and then take Goff on the next pick, please. You're insane.
I think this guy's taking Hurts.
Yeah, he is. That's why you could wait.
That's what I said. I don't think I would have needed to have taken.
But he wasn't going to take Puka either. You're taking Puka.
Oh, he might have. You don't know.
You're taking Puka way too high, man. Way too high. Nobody's building.
I love the Rams builds. I might even go.
Yeah, George. We'll be coming out. We'll be coming out a couple episodes. We'll do a couple lives every week. Leading up into the past the playoffs. So we'll be talking about our player rankings for, just tentative rankings, who we have. What are you doing?
Dude, they're not taking Goff when they have Lamar and Allen.
The other guy's going to take Goff at some point in time. He's going to do
If he
it.
takes the year on the comeback, he takes the year on the comeback. I was
He's
willing
doing
to take
it
that
out
risk.
of spite. These are spiteful people we're dealing with, Joe.
Listen, they can be spiteful as they want. If I have a roster, I take their money.
Anyway, yes, George, we're going to be doing content in the off season. Usually we will produce a little bit more.
He lost.
Yeah, I told you. Totally implodes everything.
I don't think Goff is doing anything.
I don't care if he's doing anything. You just built a potential Super Bowl line. You're telling me right now, that you're building out a Rams Baltimore lineup, and you're going to take Mark Andrews, and then you're going to take Bateman or Zay, and then you're going to take a back ass. What are you doing?
I told you. Amaz a one-off. I've built this roster 3 times now.
But you don't have a one-off. You don't have a one-off. You just took 2 top players in the first 2 rounds as one-offs, and you didn't build anything to go with them.
We've done it twice now, Bob.
I get it, but at least the other teams had a chance. What are you doing?
This team will come out in full circle with a chance.
All right. I'm willing to see what you do, because whatever you're doing right here makes no sense.
I understand that you hate my lineups. You always have.
I hate it because logistically speaking, you're going to get somebody's going to spike take Matt Stafford from you. Somebody's going to spike take everything from you.
Matt Stafford has yet to been drafted in any of these.
I'm going to ask you this. Who are you taking from Baltimore?
I'm taking Zay right now.
Why?
What do you mean, why? He's my number 4 receiver, so I get him.
Mark Andrews is still on the board. What are you doing?
What's that?
Mark Andrews is still on the board. What are you doing?
No, he's not. He went 3 picks ago.
You don't even have the best Baltimore lineup.
I don't need the best Baltimore lineup out of this pod. I need the one that's going to win out of this pod.
Yeah, I get that, but listen to me. This is what Mick was saying. Listen. When you get to the Super Bowl, okay, and you are in a Super Bowl with somebody who also has...
You guys are ignoring the fact that over half the teams aren't going to have any players left. It's all about surviving to get there.
I get it. I'm there with you. But what I want you to understand, though, is that there is at least one team out there that's going to advance that has...
It's not this one. All right.
That has
I got second place.
More
whatever.
Firepower in the Super Bowl than this team. Like, if you're not going to build the rest of Baltimore, or you're not going to build the rest of Detroit, don't take them, because Amon-Ra is not even the best choice at wide receiver this week. Okay, Henry isn't even the best choice at running back. If you're not going to build,
Henry's definitely the best choice at running back this week.
No, he's not.
Then who are you saying is the best at running back this week?
Gibbs is the best. Gibbs is unequivocally the best this week.
Oh, I 100% disagree with that.
Why?
Henry.
Buffalo has been good at stopping the run through the middle. I understand that Henry is Derrick Henry, okay? I understand that. But I also understand that there is a point in time in these matchups where Derrick Henry is utilized more. We'll get to that in a minute, George. Where Derrick Henry is utilized more, and it's usually when they have the lead. So if you are banking on them having a significant lead, okay, then what you've done is essentially saying, okay, let's say Baltimore wins this. Let's say Baltimore wins, okay? You build out Rams on the other side.
I build out Rams and Washington on the other side, yeah.
There is no, unless Washington makes it, there is no strategic advantage of having Matt Stafford against Baltimore's defense.
Yeah, there is, because I needed a quarterback in the game to give me some points.
But
I didn't have Lamar.
But there are going to be people that have Lamar that are going to get them all the points.
Bob, again, it's about getting out of the first round. Getting out of this round.
Yeah, I would like George, as a Packer, being a Packers guy, I would like to see them go out and make a big splash on defense. I think that they could be a much better team than the sum of their parts are like their parts are good, but they could be a much better collective team. I do think they need to put in a little bit of work to figure out what they want to do ultimately in the wide receiver department, because these wide receivers, you know, Jordan Love, the way that this team is utilizing Jordan Love is kind of a mystery to me because he can and is capable of passing the ball 30 plus times a game, but they don't do it. And they rely a lot on Jacobs. And in my opinion, if they're going to rely on Jacobs, I think it would be a smart idea to continue to invest in probably interior offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But also, if you're going to try to get the ball into Jacobs' hands more and use field position advantage, going out there and getting Max Crosby would not be a bad pick because he is a playmaker to the utmost degree. You know, if they sign Fields, they'll do some bullshit that they did this year anyway with Fields, and they'll bring back Russell Wilson on a league min contract. I mean, the Steelers.
Russell Wilson, I don't think's coming back now.
The Steelers right now, if Fields is
The
going,
Steelers will bring Fields back. I'm 100%
if
sure of
Fields
that.
is the Steelers quarterback next year, I think that Fields has significantly more fantasy value than Russell Wilson does.
Oh yeah.
But I also would downgrade most of the wide receivers in that department as well. While I wouldn't upgrade Fields significantly, I have a problem with the coaching and the play calling of the Steelers, and that any I don't think that any one receiver will take advantage of this, but we'll have to see with another full off season if Fields and Pickens can, continue to show a connection and make it shine. I like that. I think that could be really, really good for the Steelers. But I'm not going to jump the gun and say I'd take them in like the 7th or 8th round because I wouldn't. But I would probably think about it because Fields is talented. All right, what's the plan there?
The play was actually going to be Gibbs. In all honesty, my Q had Gibbs first. But the play is beautiful start.
Okay. Okay.
Because there are some drafts we've gotten Henry and Lamar, Bob.
That's fine. I'm just saying, don't build out a Ram stack here because you're not going to, unless you can build out Lamar, you're not going to be able to, like, if these two teams end up colliding in the Super Bowl or for whatever reason, you shouldn't build the same team again with the same assets.
Oh, dude, I love building the same team again. I only need to root for one set of players. It's consistency how you can have multiple entries in the top 10. Oh, shit. What the hell is that dick move? Was not expecting that. It might be, we'll do Detroit right this time. How about that, Bob?
I mean, again, if I don't know, whatever you want to do. I mean, I'm just flabbergasted right now. I'm trying to read George's question here, and I'm just flabbergasted by the decision-making process. You did it again, and you're not going to build out any Detroit guy. But you're not going to build out any Detroit guy. I believe in the team. Why? Are you going to build out?
Why?
Are you going to build out Goff this time?
Yeah, I'm probably going to build out Goff this time.
Okay, all right,
but not as early as you want. I'm probably going to go in the 4th round.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that Goff is not going to be the highest scoring quarterback.
No, I'm not building out Goff.
Any week. This is the same freaking thing that happened last time. Same thing. But yeah, I agree with you, George. I do think that having a veteran in the locker room, to the significance that Devontae Adams has been a veteran, will be able to support the growth of younger players in the vein of Reed, Dobbs, and Watson. Maybe it will provide this team with a little direction. I just don't see the Packers sticking with Watson for significantly longer periods of time because he's too injured to be on the field and to be a game-breaking player like he once was. That's true. So I don't really see them sticking with him for very long.
Bob, what part of building the same team are you not getting?
What I'm saying is that you can't build it any better. You've already built it.
I know. It was perfect the first time. I loved it.
Why are we building it again?
Because it works. Period.
It works, but it's not good.
Yes, it is. This is the part we're going to disagree about.
Kupp is a dead asset to me. Right now, Kupp is a dead. He scored 3 points. He scored in the last.
Get rid of Cooper Kupp at the end. That's not the problem.
He scored in the last 4 weeks like 5 total points. Useless. But you're building him so early. Like the fact that you're building this team And the fact that Kyron's not even the best running back. Like, you know,
There you go, change it up for it.
but that was a useless change. What are you going to
No, it wasn't.
do?
That's to replace Cooper Kupp later.
But are you going to build out Houston?
No. I'm building up the Rams.
I mean, everybody watching right now can see the frustration in my face. I don't see the end goal. I don't see the end goal. I don't see the end goal in what you're doing right here.
Bob, I built this. How are you getting surprised by this?
What
I'm
I'm
like
saying
Wile
to you,
Coyoteing this shit.
But what I'm sharing with you, and I think you're missing this point that I'm sharing with you, is that when you make it to the Super Bowl with this team, okay, if you make it to the Super Bowl with this team, somebody has already constructed this team, but better.
Which then they haven't gotten there. Because you need to have the assets around it to get to there.
I'm not fighting your Nico Collins. I'm not fighting that. I'm fighting your treatment of Derrick Henry and Amon-Ra and your steadfastness to not build Jared Goff.
Dude, it's not a steadfast not build Jared Goff. You don't draft Jared Goff without Amon or Gibbs. I didn't have a chance to.
You had a chance to.
Where? He was the next pick.
In the last draft.
Well, that's in the past. We're in the present.
Yeah, and in the present, you're still doing the same thing.
I'm doing it better.
Yeah, I mean, I that was my understanding too, but it wasn't necessarily a done deal that they were going to keep Fields either. That seemed like the plan, but we'll see. Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Max Crosby's a dog. If you can go out there and get any playmaking defensive lineman right now, I think that it opens up your interior defensive line. It opens up a lot of things. And like the Steelers, they've got TJ Watt, and TJ Watt, hasn't been a huge difference maker over the last kind of 3 games here. But I think it's important to note that when you look at the Steelers' growth, is that they've been kind of plateauing, every single year over the last 5 years. And there's something either in the coaching staff or in the player personnel in general that there's just not enough to take you to the next level. Like you've seen Baltimore, you see Buffalo, there's playmakers, but there's also guys that are doing their jobs in the capacity that they know how to do them. And the Packers, the reason I like the Packers this past year is because they were utilizing assets in different ways. And from a fantasy perspective, it was maddening if you owned any one of those wide receivers, if you owned Jordan Love. But they knew what their identity was. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the biggest things that has been for the Pittsburgh Steelers for such a long time, George, has been run the ball, play defense. They couldn't really do either of those things for large portions of the season this year. And Joe, I think you could agree to some of that. That when it came down for brass tacks and it came down for these players to perform, they didn't. The running game sucked because the offensive line has been getting crushed. The running backs have been not doing much because, let's face it, Najee Harris isn't the most skilled player in the league at rushing the ball.
Najee's more of a problem than a benefit.
You look at, and Najee's out this year. He's not getting re-signed. I do not think that.
No, he's a Cowboy. He's 100% going to be a Cowboy.
You look at it and you say, okay, well, where does this leave the Steelers going forward? The Steelers are at this crossroads where they have to make a decision of how will their player personnel carry them into the playoffs and beyond, because it's no longer a thing with at least fans in Pittsburgh right now. Joe has always said this, where Mike Tomlin isn't the necessarily the coach that we want, but where are you going to find somebody better than him who's won as many games as him?
You never will.
You never will. So you're kind of at this juncture in the Steelers.
Mix that up at the end.
You're kind of in that juncture as the Steelers right now, and saying to yourself, I need to figure out what my identity is again. If my identity is to run the ball, it would make a lot of sense to invest in the offensive line and to invest in, say, a Keldon Johnson in the draft this year. You will not be able to get Ashton Genty, but Keldon Johnson, I think, would be really good for them. You could go out and say to yourself, okay, well, if our identity is going to be smash mouth football, I need to get tight ends that are really good at blocking, and I'm not going to be concerned how well their pass catching is. If I'm going to do that same scenario, I've got to get an alpha wide receiver who's not a head case, who's going to be able to go out there and say, okay, I'm going to run my routes, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm not going to get pissy if something bad happens. That guy isn't George Pickens. So,
no, the Steelers, quite frankly, need to get an alpha in that's bigger than Pickens to make him
exactly, George. The Packers are good, but not great. I mean, their defense played up at a certain time, but they're good, but not great.
Yeah, the Packers, not as much as the Steelers, but the Packers also had this problem in that, quite frankly, they're not built for the long haul. The Steelers just eroded with time by that defense being too much on the field. As great as TJ Watt is, he can only play 60% of the games.
I'll be right back.
And
this is
there was a 3-game stretch in the middle of the season where he had to play 100% of the snaps. He was never good after that. And that is the fundamental problem that the Steelers found themselves in.
Joe, my question to you. I know we talked about this being Gibbs. I'm curious how you feel.
I'm going to try to do Gibbs and Goff, Bob, just so you'll shut the hell up.
I don't need Gibbs and Goff, but if you're going to take Amon-Ra, it makes sense to take Goff. Okay? If you want to build out Baltimore, do you want to take Lamar first here?
No, because I don't like Lamar without Henry.
What about Josh Allen? I know your consternation with Josh Allen.
I'll give you Allen. We can do Allen. It's
he
totally
does have
against
a lot
everything else I want to do, but we'll do Allen.
But I'm saying your Josh Allen still provides you with that opportunity to build that Ram stack that you.
That late Buffalo's action makes up for it. I just don't like Cooks as the running back.
That's fine. What NFC running back do you think is going to make it to the Super Bowl? That's not Detroit.
That's not Detroit? Well, the Rams.
Okay.
Or Washington.
I mean, if you think it, but here's the other benefit of taking this Josh Allen. If you think it's going to be Buffalo, Detroit in the Super Bowl, these next 2 picks could be Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams if you don't like the receivers for Buffalo.
I don't like the receivers for Buffalo. I think the right call is probably Cooks and Kyron, though. I mean, realistically.
I mean, do you think Detroit's going to make it to the Super Bowl is my question to you. There goes Amon-Ra, so that won't play. So he's going to build.
Cooks and Kyron is still the right call.
Okay.
Because I don't love Cooks, and Kyron gives me the backup for it.
But again, Kyron has a really difficult matchup this week, Joe. You are totally ignoring the matchup this week.
I am, but it's every time I put Kyron on, he's never the number 1. He's always with someone else.
I'm okay.
Because the matchup
but I'm not okay investing such a high pick there where we can go after.
Because the matchup the following week is gold. Kyron will win the championship round for people.
I'm not seeing it.
That's because you're not seeing Detroit losing.
I mean,
Kyron against Washington is insane. Well,
okay,
I mean, look up who these Buffalo players are since I haven't been touching them.
It's Shakir, it's Kincaid.
No, I know who they are. Just when they're going.
It's Samuel. It doesn't really matter when they're going.
Well, it does when you're building your queue.
People are going to
snipe you. I'd rather have. I know Samuel scored this week, but I would rather have Kincaid.
Yeah, but not now. Not right now.
No, certainly not now. Now's going to be Puka.
You're
now's
going
probably Puka. I mean, it's got to be 2 receivers. So I'm cool with hell. If Kelsey's there, I'm cool with Puka and Kelsey.
I think your love of the Rams is really clouding your judgment about a lot of things.
It might, but I'm going to go Nico and Puka.
I appreciate your tenacity. Let's just say that. I appreciate your tenacity here.
Yeah, so this is going to end up being a Buffalo, Rams, and maybe a back end dirty Houston build. We won't take Stafford.
No, no, that's a waste. I think if you go this next pick, you got to get Shakir on this next hit.
It's Shakir and Kincaid.
That's fair. Shakir and Kincaid is fair if they're available there. Will we win? Okay, so we got Lamar. So that team is Hurts, AJ Brown, Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Laporta. That could get out of the first round, even if Jalen Hurts doesn't do well. You got Goff, Lamar, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, David Montgomery. So they built Lions and then Lamar. So they had to pivot off of Lamar. So they're just building straight Lions here. They might
that's a failed strategy.
They might build a Mark Andrews right here. Mark Andrews and Zay potentially. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then the other one, okay, so they're taking.
So this is Shakir and Kincaid.
Mm-hmm.
And then my ideal world on the next comeback is Mixon and Stroud. Maybe Stroud's the last pick.
Again, Houston has a tough matchup against the run too. I mean, I think that's something to be considered. I'll be right back.
Yeah, but there is something about playing volume when none of them have a great option. And Bob left me in silence. Sorry, guys. You know how it gets. I get in a zone in these drafts, and I just, zone in. But one thing I am going to do coming up here is spite, because I've said this many times. I believe Jalen Daniels gives you a great chance to win any given week. It's why I keep building the Washington lineups. If I can spite them, I'm going to. Because at the end of the day, it is about beating everyone else. And in a 4-man draft, you have that possibility. So would it only give me a limited amount of Bills receivers? Yeah. So right now I already have the 2 Buffalo receivers on the roster, which is fine. By taking Daniels and Kupp, I'm going to be forgoing. See, this is a tough call. Do I want Kupp or do I want to have Mixon? I don't really think Mixon's going to win, but if they do win, I don't think he's going to be part of the situation. Tough call here. Probably going to go with Kupp, though. Or Samuel. I'm going to go with Samuel. Build deeper into the Buffalo stack and let that be. And then whichever Houston player or Kupp is left for the last pick is what I'm going to do. But that spite of Daniels is 100% intentional. You see this guy here was building a Washington stack anyway in the second pick, and the second guy, his only quarterback is Mahomes. I don't think that's enough firepower to get out of the first round. Again, I have 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks to get out of the first round. It's a completely naked Daniels. It was a complete spite pick. Probably wasn't right, but it's what we did there.
So that's an advancement move. I mean, if you are focused on strictly advancing in the first round,
it is.
You're hedging. You're hedging that Josh Allen doesn't have a great game against Baltimore's defense, which is possible. You're then saying, okay, I want my Josh Allen next week if Josh Allen advances.
So this is obviously dependent on Josh Allen advancing. And is there any chance in hell Stroud ever outscores Josh Allen? I think that's a hard no, right?
This week?
Any week.
I think this week.
All right, this week you think he outscores Allen and Daniels? I just feel so much more comfortable with Cooper Kupp here as the back end.
That's fine. Do it.
Because then with the Rams-Buffalo Super Bowl, we have, if it's a Rams-Buffalo Super Bowl, we have 4 receivers, 2 running backs, and a quarterback.
Yeah. But that's also what I was saying about that Kyren.
5 receivers. Sorry. 5 receivers.
That's also what I'm saying about that Kyron Puka turn that Kyron pick that you took in like the 3rd round. I think your love of the Rams is making you take the Rams way too high.
Well, that's where all their ADPs are, though, Bob. I'm going off of ADP.
I get the ADPs, but not like if you go back and look where, like, I just want you to do a draft where you don't take Kyron, so you can see.
So no Rams. Draft with no Rams. All right.
I want you. No. I just want you to see where Kyron actually is going for people, because
we'll see where all the Rams go if I didn't exist. That's basically the question.
Yeah.
I'm still doing Washington, though.
I agree with that. I think that's a smart decision to take Daniels.
Right. No Rams.
McLaurin.
No Rams. And Bob will probably
say
do
it again.
one more after this one. This will be the second last one.
Say it again. No
Rams.
One more time.
I hate you, Bob. This is the second last draft we're going to do. Then
Because
do one
you know what?
You know
what? My discussion with you saved your ass, though, because you were going hard on Minnesota, and I said pivot.
It did. Some of those Minnesota teams still survived, though.
Yeah, because you had other better assets. Obviously.
All right, so we're 1-1. If we're not doing Rams, we probably should do Detroit.
Okay, but I agree with Gibbs as a 101. It is a hard task to build a Detroit build. Most likely building Kansas City is not nice because we don't believe Kansas City is going to be the highest scoring team, but we do believe they're going to make it to the Super Bowl.
So why don't we just do Baltimore? What if we do Philly, Washington?
You mean build Philly, Washington, and hope Philly makes it to the Super Bowl? Or hope Washington? So you want to build all-out Philly, all-out Washington, and hope one of those two teams makes it to the Super Bowl?
No, because Hurts can't make it. I'm doing Gibbs.
But a Barkley. Yeah, I mean Barkley hurts.
I can't talk myself into Philly being fantasy relevant enough.
I mean, I could talk myself into Gibbs. Like the only problem is that let's just go for the AFC side for a minute. The Chiefs have a good enough run defense. Kansas City, Baltimore has a good run defense. Buffalo has a good run defense. Houston has a good run defense. So taking these NFC running backs right now, unless they're a pass catching back like Gibbs can be, Buffalo
He's not can be. He is.
Buffalo is weak against pass catching running backs. So that's the other benefit of that.
So this is Baltimore Lamar or Henry Lamar. At least it should be.
Maybe. Should be, but might not be.
Okay, so that's not what I thought it was going to be at all.
Spite. It's spite.
Dude, I got Lamar.
If you can get Lamar here, I will totally be up for that gusto.
I can also do Kelsey Mahomes, but you take Lamar to get out of the first round.
Take Lamar and then take who do you want to take here? Who's the best available player?
Best on the board is Lamar and Mahomes, and
you want to build out of Detroit? You said so.
I think it would be Javonte then. Or Jameson Williams is the highest Detroit one left.
Do you like that?
Not really.
And you build a late McLaurin?
Oh, we're definitely doing Washington. That's happening.
Okay. Can you build Jameson Williams here?
All right.
And then I'll let you take Puka if he's there on the comeback. Okay.
Well, we'll see what the comeback is. What if we did? Well, I got
because
Andrews on the short list.
Arguably, Derrick Henry and Jahmyr Gibbs are probably going to cap you out at the same fantasy points in the Super Bowl. Lamar is going to outscore Jared Goff. And now you have to get the wide receiver that's going to be the best wide receivers on the board. You can't have Amon-Ra. So it's probably going to be Mark Andrews, Bateman, and Zay somewhere in there. You can take Zay in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, this is going to be Andrews and Bateman if I can do it.
Well, Bateman doesn't have to be this round.
Well, Andrews does.
Andrews does. There goes Puka.
So what about Monty as the hedge? Because how mad would that suck to be in the Super Bowl and watch Monty steal all your touchdowns?
Yeah, take Mark Andrews and Monty. I'm okay with that.
All right. So we do have a full lineup. We're obviously going to throw Bateman in it and Zay late.
Bateman and Zay. And
we're
then
not going to get Laporta, obviously. So Detroit's now off the table. So now we got to start worrying about our Washington build.
Unless you believe, we are not that type of people, but unless you believe Tim Patrick, Craig Reynolds, and all those guys can be relevant.
Not a chance in hell. That's a waste.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Okay,
so if both
Kyren,
Scary Terry and Daniels are here, they will be my next picks.
Kyren is a 5th rounder, but understand he went to the guy that had Puka.
All right. Okay. That's basically what we've been doing.
Yeah, but you've been doing it a round earlier.
You were taking Kyren in the
3rd. What?
AJ Brown's a wasted pick.
All
right, so there went Bateman.
So Zay.
I'm actually thinking Scary Terry and Daniels.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
And then because Zay's been falling.
I'm okay with that.
And then again,
I'm just worried about
3 quarterbacks.
I'm just worried about that 5th guy because he built out Baltimore, Detroit.
So you think Zay's not coming back?
I don't think Zay's coming back.
Well, then we're taking McDaniel or Daniels and Zay then.
I mean, either McLaurin or Zay, if you don't believe in Jameson Williams this week. I don't think Zay's going to make it back.
Williams any week. He's just a firecracker. All right, so 3 picks left. Obviously, Scary Terry would be ideal in one of them. There he goes. So it wouldn't have mattered. I'd rather not have him completely naked since we built out. So I think I'd lean Ertz. As
Diami Brown
in the draft now.
Diami Brown looked good. I'd be willing to, hitch my wagon to that instead of Ertz. All right, who you taking here?
Both.
Who you taking here?
I think I'm just going 3 Washington guys to end it out.
Interesting. No Baltimore guy on the back.
Wait, Tom, is there anyone left on the Ravens I want?
No, likely just went. Bateman just went.
Yeah, so it's probably Eckler and Hill are probably where I'm going here.
Eckler and Hill?
Yeah.
What Hill?
No, Eckler and Ertz. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I mean, so
unless there's someone on the board. Oh, Christ, I'm going to take Hopkins as a spite pick.
Yeah, take the best. Take who you think is going to be the best.
Hopkins is the best on the board right now by far. And then I'll still get the 2 Washington guys.
Yeah. So just looking at things, looking at that 5th team or that 4th team over there, I'm looking at a team that if we were to both make it, if these are 2 teams that can potentially be constructed that could land in the Super Bowl. So after the draft, I want to go back and look at the top end of these teams to compare what I was talking about when we're building variations of stacks and to see what these stacks are going to look like come Super Bowl time. Okay.
So yeah, this stack works if Detroit is in the Super Bowl.
We'll go over it.
If Detroit is getting the Super Bowl, we then have the flex taken care of, the running back taken care of, and one of the 2 receivers. They have to be playing Baltimore for this to work. So we have
and
the
that's fine.
That's
fine.
The other receiver.
That's our investment. Okay, that's fine.
And we have the hedge with Washington in case. The ideal scenario for this team is Detroit, Baltimore, pretty solid. We'd be on Detroit's running game and Baltimore's passing game. So zigging compared to how those 2 teams are constructed.
So my question to you, so in underdog again, it's QB, running back, wide receiver, flex.
2 receivers, 1 flex.
Yeah, so quarterback, running back, 2 receivers, flex, right?
Yep.
All right. So I just want to go over our team versus team 5 for a moment.
Team 4.
Yeah, team 4. Sorry. All right. So we've got Lamar, Gibbs. I'm just taking potential Super Bowl matchup. J-Mo, Andrews, Monty, Zay. Any more Detroit or Baltimore players on that lineup? Any more Detroit or Baltimore players on that lineup?
On theirs or ours?
On ours, I can only see up to 7.
They have Likely, Cleef Raymond, and Aguilar. They went all in. I think that's too much wasted to get out of the first round.
All right. So who's their lineup? So Henry, Goff,
Henry, Ahmad, Goff, Laporta, Worthy, Bateman. A lot of risk in those dudes.
Okay. So I just want to go with it pick by pick with you for a moment here. So if these were the teams, this is potentially what we could be seeing in a Super Bowl matchup. Detroit, Baltimore. And a lot of these lineups that are going to advance with Detroit and Baltimore potentially are going to carry a combination of these players. So the reason I wanted to do this experiment here is to just see where those line up at and which ones you believe are better. So if we were to meet a team like team number 4 in the Super Bowl, you believe and I believe Lamar will outscore Goff.
Yeah.
Okay. Gibbs and Henry
are probably a push.
A push. J-Mo and Amon-Ra.
That's definitely a Ma.
Okay. Laporta v. Andrews.
That's probably Andrews.
Monty v. or Zay v. Bateman.
Probably Zay by that point in the year.
And then it'd be Monty versus everybody else. So
yeah,
I think that there is credibility when you're doing a stack like this, Joe. And we got extremely lucky that Lamar dropped to us.
We did.
I think that there is credibility in a lineup like this when you're looking to build and you're saying, okay, we can do this tomorrow too. I think we're going to come on tomorrow too, right?
Yeah, we're going to be on tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
Only till about 5:15 or so. 5:15, 5:30.
Tomorrow for sure. We'll do one more today, but tomorrow for sure.
Oh, no, we're dilly-dallying too long. It's going to be the end of it.
Okay. Tomorrow for sure. What I want to do is I want to take the rosters from each team. And I want to say in a hypothetical Super Bowl, knowing what their defenses are capable of, which players ping at me. If I'm building this, I don't want to be like that guy taking Likely, Raymond, and Aguilar. Although that gives me more chances, more opportunities in the Super Bowl to be successful, are those people going to get opportunities in the biggest game with the biggest stars?
The answer is possibly, but the reality is that what it probably keeps you from doing is getting there. Because at the end of the day,
that's my worry.
Yeah, you still have to get out of the first round, and everyone else in the first round has 10 bullets because none of them are wasted. You essentially are wasting some of your own, and that's what I don't like about the super depth in the stacks is that that's what happens. So, like I said, Bob, I like this team. No one's given Zay any love because he's hurt, and he didn't put up anything last week because he was hurt. He comes around this week, he's healthy. Next week, he's fine. Super Bowl, he's amazing.
That could be
I really think Zay could be the guy who's the steal for the Super Bowls.
That could be a story for sure. I mean, I'm not discrediting any team right now's chances. I mean, they made it this far.
We're basically discrediting Houston chances.
I'm not. I do. Like I said to Tino and you earlier, and to the audience earlier, I do think the Chiefs are going to win. But the way that Houston played this week, I know that the Chargers are not the same as the Chiefs. I get that. I understand that wholeheartedly. But what I do understand is that that type of ferocity doesn't go away. Once you smell it, once it's in the water,
No, I get it. I just think it's a very
defense
low
in the
scoring game. And
defense
that's
in
the
the
fundamental problem with this. In terms
oh
of
yeah,
gambling, I'm okay
defense
with it.
wins
Give me the points in
championships.
Houston. But I just really feel in this point that for fantasy purposes, there's not going to be enough points scored from the Eagles or from Kansas City and
To
all of these
advance you.
stacks that are built upon them, with one exception. Kansas City might go all in on Kelsey. That might be the glaring exception.
Well,
But
I
the
think it's
rest of
a
them, I think it'll be too few, spread too far.
I don't think it's a bad idea. And this is why I think the builds that we did with Mahomes and Daniels are smart is that Kelsey has the chance to get you out of this round. But Mahomes v. Daniels, I think Daniels is going to outscore Mahomes this week in terms of fantasy points. So
Again, we have Daniels as a top 3 quarterback this week.
if you are building Patrick Mahomes, and because Patrick Mahomes doesn't come at a second round price here, and in this draft, did he even go?
Mahomes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When?
He didn't go till the 7th round, but he went.
Right? That's crazy, right? Because in all of our other drafts that we did, he was going 4th, 3rd round. But you see, once those top 4 quarterbacks were built in this iteration of these pods, everybody kind of walked into who they wanted to build. And so this Jalen Hurts back and Patrick Mahomes isn't going to outscore Lamar this week, isn't going to outscore Allen this week, and isn't going to outscore Jane Daniels this week. So it doesn't make any sense unless you build a second quarterback. And most people don't like building a second quarterback. Most people don't like it.
Yeah. Dude,
Family, yeah.
some of the ones that got us out of the first round were because we built 3 quarterbacks. I think that that's an important thing to recognize and know. It's not the end of the world to go a little bit out of convention. It's really not.
Family, some of those mini Bucks builds are hurting, but we still have full lineups going into this week. Some of the ones that Joe built that had Minnesota Bucks are dead. Absolutely.
Oh no, but they advanced.
But one of the things to note out of those games is those players definitely shot up the charts for some people. And for at least for the Buccaneers and Chargers, those were our secondary stacks. I mean, we did have a lot of assets built up into a first stack. Unfortunately, the Minnesota Chargers stacks, those ones did not turn out. The Jay Jeffs, Aaron Jones with the Herberts and stuff, those didn't turn out. They did advance, but they're dead in the water.
And the other ones that didn't advance were the Buffalo ones. I mean, it was virtually impossible to get out of the first round with a Buffalo stack because when you had to spend your resources, and they flat out just didn't deliver. I mean, it's just the way it is because you could have had Ladd or Collins at the same point where you were taking the Buffalo guys, and Ladd basically advanced more than anyone. So did Pickens. If you took George Pickens in the 8th, 9th, or 10th round, you advanced with a hell of a strong team moving forward because there were so many duds from people taking lesser players that wanted to move on. That's the paradigm of all this. We are all in on moving on because if you don't move on, it's a moot conversation. This is why we ended up with 50% survival rate. Your average should be 18%. We blew it out of the water. So yeah, we're going to come back here in 2 weeks and we're going to have some teams in the Super Bowl that have one player in them. They ain't going to win, but we're going to have some that have options. And that's the key thing.
I think we did that in one. I think we did that in one family. That was just kind of a weird one. But family, in terms of this, his fall off, can we blame you? I mean, you traded him the last 2 weeks.
No, you blame him for the truth. The lineman got hurt and Darnold fell apart due to pressure. Darnold is literally a piece of crystal.
He was pressured a lot.
If he's all by himself, it will look real pretty and it's valuable. As soon as there are little kids running around and throwing shit everywhere, the crystal's going to break and you don't want them. That's
Yeah.
what he is. He's exotic crystal.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that far, but I will say tomorrow, family, because we're about to jump off right now, and Jesse as well. Yeah, um, it hurts a lot.
It was
It
so
hurts a lot.
projectable. They weren't going to let him do the tush push into the extent of running with the concussion, and they're still not gonna.
So
That's why he's
Dan,
not
in
gonna be any good
order
this week.
to answer this question, as we go off the air, we will be on again tomorrow, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. Dynasty one quarterback, half PPR. I was offered Pickens for McMillan today. Any thoughts? I'm kind of wishy-washy on this, Dan. When
I mean, if
I'm
you're doing it, there
wishy-washy,
better be draft capital involved.
on this, I feel like the players involved are the right players to be involved in when thinking about dynasty right now. But I also think that they're not. I also think that they're not equal. I believe that Jalen McMillan is in a much better situation with a much better coaching staff and quarterback coach.
Family
Um,
got it. You
and
can't
and
buy into
and
Pickens when the Steelers don't even trust
yeah,
Pickens.
and family,
McMillan is the guy they're building around in Tampa. Now,
if
the
you go
question
back,
is, does the number 2 with an elite number 1 outperform a standalone only number 1? If the Steelers draft a first-round receiver who is an alpha, you don't want Pickens at all. So if you're talking about, Dan, you have to make the decision today, no draft capital involved, I think I'd rather keep McMillan.
and here's what I want to say about Jalen McMillan. And family, you can go back a little bit earlier in the episode when I was talking about the Steelers, and they have a lot to do.
They do.
They have a
They
lot
have
to
a
do before
receiver,
next
a
year.
corner, a quarterback, a running back, and we haven't
But
even
I
started
will
talking about the interior defensive line yet.
say this: throughout the entirety of the season, McMillan, once Godwin went down,
He's
his
not.
target his
Dan,
targets
just
were
outright, Godwin is not going back to Tampa. They can't afford him. And he's too old. He's not going back to Tampa.
is he due
They
for contract
drafted
extension?
McMillan to replace him. McMillan showed his worth. Godwin is not going back. Godwin's going to go to be a number 2 somewhere great. I can already feel it. I feel the headlines getting written first day of free agency. Giants buy Godwin.
So
It
he
makes too
is
much
still
sense.
he's okay. So yeah, there. Knowing what we saw out of Jalen McMillan this year, it is perfectly acceptable to move on. To, as Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization, that they have the asset in Jalen McMillan. You saw him. They utilized him across the entirety of the end of the season to see what they had. Most likely to see if they were comfortable moving off of a big money contract like Chris Godwin's probably going to get in the near future. You look at it and you saw what Chris Godwin did over the course of the first couple of weeks of the season, totally laying out there and playing like a bat out of hell. If they re-sign him, I do not think that you can relegate Jalen McMillan to a role that's not relevant for this team. Yeah, he was catching touchdowns at a rate that was non-sustainable, but why was he catching touchdowns? The reason he was catching touchdowns was because Baker Mayfield was looking for him. Baker Mayfield was relying on him in certain situations. His targets were reliable enough for fantasy purposes. Um, and you look at it and you say, there were games where even a very healthy Pickens as a first read target could not perform. So why would I want to trade an asset that's already performing well in their first year? Yeah, there's a sophomore slump that could happen. Why am I trading an asset that's already a valued asset of a great passing offense to move into an asset on a passing offense that's not very good at passing and doesn't have an identity? So unless I was getting back a good amount of picks, Dan, I'm not doing that. And family, to your point, it's a
And
stealer.
family, to your point, the reason I'm not just throwing everyone at the Chargers is because I want to be right. Godwin makes perfect sense as a Giant. He's going to be a good pass catcher, pair him with Neighbors for any rookie to be better with. If you're the Giants, Godwin should be one of your top skill player targets. And also, he's coming off an injury, so he's perfect for the Giants.
Dan, that's kind of the arrow that's pointing in the favor of Godwin more, or that's pointing in the favor of McMillan for me, because Evans and Godwin were healthy at the beginning of the year and middle of the year. As the season went on, I'm not saying that McMillan played great. I'm just saying that Baker Mayfield did rely on him as a target and developed a rapport. And a caliber of quarterback like, like Baker Mayfield was this year, he's not going to keep giving Jalen McMillan the ball if he's not going to rely and trust Jalen McMillan as a wide receiver to do more. When Evans and Godwin were healthy, of course McMillan's going to get relegated to the side because it's Evans and Godwin. Those players are elite caliber talents when they have the ball in their hands. When Evans and Godwin were out, McMillan did pour at the beginning of the season. Once you look at the last 5 weeks, McMillan's target share was good. McMillan had a really reliable kind of middle ground of like 3 to 4 catches, 5 catches, 7 catches, and he was catching everything that was coming his way. In this game this past week, what was it? 2 catches on 4 targets. Mm-hmm. That's 50%. He should have had a little bit more. Didn't get much room. Whatever, right? But if you have a rookie there, based upon contracts, if you have a rookie there that's performing at the caliber that McMillan was towards the back end of the season, there's no reason to go and invest your money significantly in Chris Godwin unless they decided that Mike Evans' age was a significant problem for them.
And if that's the case, they're going to do a first-round pick to replace him. They're not going to do Godwin to replace him.
And that's a personal opinion there, Dan.
And the other part you got to realize is that in the beginning of the year, when Godwin and Evans went out, Tampa Bay was still rebuilding their offense to figure out what it would be. So that's the other part of it. But that was a deep dive on Tampa that most people don't really care about. Nonetheless, guys, it was awesome. We'll see you tomorrow here at 3:45. We'll go from there, guys.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, connecting the fan bases of the NFL.